Welcome back. We keep hearing from people saying that the bull market is not over, saying the bull market hasn't even begun, even though cryptos and assets across the board are seeing all-time record highs. But while we're seeing this and hearing that the bull market hasn't even started, one venture capital report says that few Bitcoin treasury companies will survive the death spiral, and specifically talking about what's going to happen when the market does turn into the bear market, which will happen at some point. There's a lot of people out here saying that bear markets are over, the bull market will never end. All of these companies are coming in to buy Bitcoin, and meanwhile, we can barely hold on to a $108,000 price, now at a quadruple top for the year. In today's video, we're going to be exploring what is going on in the crypto space, what this spiral for Bitcoin looks like and what it means. Meanwhile, we're hearing the president and the Treasury Secretary very bullish on Bitcoin, with the president even saying that Bitcoin takes pressure off the US dollar. So there's a lot to discuss in today's video, a lot of things that we're going to be kind of exploring, including what is going on with these Bitcoin treasury companies and what some are calling the Saylor cycle, basically saying this is going to be the Michael Saylor cycle of crypto. Anyway, we got a lot to discuss, a lot of interesting discussions on where we are in the cycle. So make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. We upload every single day to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. Also give the video a free thumbs up, because thumbs up are free, crypto is not. Thanks to every single one of our channel members. Click join down below to learn more about becoming a channel member here on YouTube. Let's get right into today's video. So you guys know, recently I showed this chart, which is the psychological movements of where the bull markets go towards. And this is not just specific to crypto. This is also in stocks. And we're going to be talking about stocks a little bit in this video as well, because it is an indicator of where we are in the cycle. Personally, where I believe that we are, and we are at basically the second half of 2025 at this point, I believe that we are in between the thrill stage and the complacency stage, somewhere in here. I don't know whether we've hit the euphoric mode or not, whether we're in complacency and we're about to hit a drawdown in the market, but we're somewhere in between here. People believe that we're all the way down here. We're in optimism and hope. Meanwhile, guys, Bitcoin, we were at hope down at 60,000 and 50,000 and 40,000, because I want you guys to remember, this cycle's low was $15,500 just because you bought at 100,000 or 90,000 or 80,000, or like MicroStrategy's dollar cost average at this point, which is around $70,000. The market doesn't care where you bought. The market cycle is the market cycle, and we're already almost 10x from the previous cycle. And that's why I believe personally we are in the thrill to complacency stage, somewhere in here. And this is a very risky area of the market to start buying in. But meanwhile, a lot of people believe we are at the top. Meanwhile, I posted this on my YouTube community tab. I definitely recommend hitting the subscribe button. That way you actually see these posts in your feed, and then give these posts a little thumbs up on the bottom, or you could just click my logo down below, take you over to my YouTube page, click on the posts tab. And we also have some polls here that you can also take for fun. But anyway, I posted this saying, Grok, explain what lower highs and lower lows indicate in financial markets, because I want you guys to see the chart for a second. Okay, the 1 year chart, we are seeing basically double top at the beginning of the year and massive drawdown in the market, and then we're basically at the double top here. And basically what you're looking for to identify whether it's a top or we're going higher is the new high higher than the previous high. For instance, right here, you can see in the end of 2024, we hit $106,150. Later on, a few months later, we only hit $106,136. So slightly under, and we couldn't break through this first major high. This, in my view, is a risky indicator. And you guys know, I am not a chartist. I don't believe that just reading charts tells you where the market's going, because the chart doesn't take into account geoeconomic, geopolitical, and all of this. But at the end of the year, the 4-year cycle is the 4-year cycle. And so At some point, we are going to peak out. At some point, we're going to bottom out. At some point, we're going to peak out. At some point, we're going to bottom out. Just like when you go on a roller coaster, right? You don't just keep going up forever. You come down at some point. You don't just keep going down forever. You come up at some point. Same thing in the markets. And so if we zoom in a little bit more on the most recent price activity in the charts, so let's just pull this up to like about a 6-month time frame or so, you can see that we topped out at about $112,000. And since then, we've had lower highs, meaning every single time that we've pumped up, we have not hit this recent high. And every low, meaning every dip that we're going lower and lower and lower. For instance, over here, we were at 107,000. Then down here, we were at 100,000. Then down here, we were at 99,000. And so we have lower highs and lower lows. So I asked Grok, right? This is XAI. Grok, explain what lower highs and lower lows indicate in financial markets. It says in financial markets, lower highs and lower lows refer to a pattern in price charts where each successive peak, which is the high, and trough, which is the low, in an asset's price is lower than the previous one. This pattern is a hallmark of a downtrend or bearish market, indicating that the price is consistently declining over time. Now, it continues and says what this indicates is, one, bearish trend. The pattern suggests that sellers are in control and the asset's price is likely to continue declining unless the trend reverses. Well, the bulls will say, but Cryptoviser, all of Wall Street is coming into the game now. And it's like, no. Wall Street has already been in the game. And Michael Saylor has already been in the game. Like, granted, some of the money is continuing to roll in. But now this is the baseline. And it's the baseline for this price. So for us to go higher, number one, the buying has to increase. This idea that there's like, oh, well, Cryptoviser, there's only 900 Bitcoin that are mined every day or whatever the number is. Who gives a shit? There's literally almost 20 million Bitcoin in circulation. People are going to say, but Cryptoviser, 5 million of those are gone or lost forever. Fine. So 15 million are in circulation. The Bitcoin mining companies have maybe the Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin treasury companies, they probably have about 2 million Bitcoin, maybe. And so there's still 13 million Bitcoin out there. And people are like, nobody's selling. Guys, Binance, CZ, these are just examples of whales that have been in the game for a very long time and have been playing this game for much longer than you and I have been in the crypto game. And so they have Bitcoin back from basically free, essentially, and now they're selling at 100,000. People are going to say, but Cryptoviser, why don't they wait till 1 million? Because they don't have to. They don't care. They will sell at 110,000 to Wall Street because Wall Street is literally telling the market, we're going to flood the market with all of this cash to buy the Bitcoin. But the cash is not going to last forever, just like with anything, right? You can go to a restaurant and keep eating and eating and eating and eating and eating and eating and eating. Eventually, you're going to top out, right? Eventually, you'll top out. You go to a roller coaster, right? You keep going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Eventually, you're going to top out. You can go on a mountain and climb the highest mountain in the world, and eventually, you're going to hit the top, right? There's always a peak. And so this idea that there is no bearish trend because Wall Street is in control. Well, yeah, Wall Street's in control, but if they stop buying or don't increase the buying, this doesn't last. Anyway, continuing on. Weakening demand, buyers are unable or unwilling to push the price higher, leading to a lack of upward momentum. I keep hearing Cryptoviser, retail hasn't even joined the party yet. It's like, most of y'all are tapped out, right, at this point in the cycle. Y'all are tapped out. All your money is already in crypto. This is the same thing with a lot of high-level investors. So Wall Street, they have to just keep buying and buying. But now nobody else is buying because we think that Wall Street's going to do the work for us. I mean, eventually, this is going to peak out. Potential for continuation, obviously, we can keep going higher or we can keep going lower. And then the trading implication, obviously, traders are going to take advantage of this and understand what's going on. And then I even posted the charts, right? Lower highs, lower lows, 3-month chart and the 1-month chart. And so people see this and they just completely miss the whole point of these Bitcoin cycles. It's to pull profit when there's liquidity and then buy into the market when there's no liquidity. Buy low, sell high. Apparently, when we're at the top of the market, this is when you have to be the most bullish. Meanwhile, few Bitcoin treasury companies will survive the death spiral, according to a venture capitalist report. Now, this is one of the risks that we've been raising this year about these treasury companies, that they're buying all the Bitcoin. And I think MicroStrategy's too big to fail at this point, but there's a lot of other smaller companies. I mean, Anthony Pompliano is starting purchasing Bitcoin now, literally at all-time record highs, literally in a downtrending market, literally at the end of the 4-year cycle, which if the company can survive until the next cycle or the cycle after that, it would make sense, and it's smart. But the other thing is, why are they not raising the money and then going to buy next year in the bear market or the year after that, or even at the end of this year? Whenever the bear market does come or the dip in the market, why would they not wait to buy till then? It doesn't make sense. And again, how are these companies going to survive a bear market? Only a few Bitcoin treasury companies will stand the test of time and avoid the vicious death spiral that will impact Bitcoin holding companies that trade close to the net asset value of business entity total asset minus their liabilities, according to a report from a venture capital firm called Reed. The health of Bitcoin treasury companies hinges on their ability to command a multiple of their net asset value, or their MNAV. We've talked about this before. They said in the report that 7 phases of Bitcoin treasury companies decline, which begins with a drop in Bitcoin's price that triggers a decline in the MNAV, bringing a company's share price closer to its actual NAV, or net asset value. It says, in turn, this makes it harder for Bitcoin holding companies to secure debt and equity financing, critical to the asymmetric trade of converting inflationary dollars into supply-capped appreciating assets. I want you guys to remember this, right? We're in a bull market right now. You may not feel like it, you may not believe it, but we are. And so even if we're not, even if you don't think that we are, let's just say we go into a bear market territory. We go much lower than where we are. How are these companies going to make it? How is MicroStrategy going to keep buying more and more Bitcoin? How are they going to keep gaining more and more debt? Maybe they will be able to do it, but will all of these companies be able to do it? And a lot of people think that the dip from 110,000 to 98,000 that we just had a few weeks ago, people thought that this was the main capitulation point. I'm like, no. We're going much lower, much lower, like potentially under $50,000. Anyway, as access to credit dries up and debt maturity looms, margin calls are triggered, forcing the firms to sell their Bitcoin into the market, lowering the price of Bitcoin further, causing a consolidation of holding companies acquired by stronger firms and potentially triggering a prolonged market-wide downturn. The authors of the report said ultimately only a select few companies will sustain a lasting MNAV premium. They'll earn it through strong leadership, disciplined execution, savvy marketing, and distinctive strategies that continue to grow the Bitcoin per share regardless of broader market fluctuations. And this is where I think MicroStrategy they are too big to fail, right? This venture capital report is even predicting that other companies are not going to make it. But again, what is that going to do? That's going to cause the big ones like MicroStrategy to be able to buy these smaller ones at a much bigger discount. So for instance, let's say Anthony Pompliano's company buys $1 billion in Bitcoin at the top of the market and we go down to $40,000. I mean, I don't know how they would not go into bankruptcy or have to liquidate. I just don't know how it would happen. And so if they bought at $1 billion with debt, and now that $1 billion is only worth $400 million, right? Because we went from 100,000 to 50 or 40,000. I mean, it could even go lower than that, but let's just say it goes from $1 billion to 400 million. Well, if that company, let's say it's Anthony Pompliano's company, let's say they have to liquidate some of the Bitcoin, this could cause even more downturn, and they may not be able to sell the Bitcoin because we are in a bear market and people are like, oh, they're going to sell, it's going to go lower, so stop buying. And then it goes lower, right? And so in that case, to prevent the market from falling even further, MicroStrategy may come in and say, okay, Anthony Pompliano, your company bought $1 billion of Bitcoin. Now the $1 billion of Bitcoin is only worth 400 million. We're not going to buy it for 400 million, but we're going to save your company and we're going to buy it for 300 million. So now they're buying it at even a lower price. And if they bought that with the debt, think about it. right now their dollar cost average is $70,000 MicroStrategy. So if they bought a company at half of that and a large portion of Bitcoin, number one, they save the company from going under. Number two, they save Bitcoin from going down even further. And number three, that's it. I mean, most people are going to say, but Cryptoviser is going to be good. They're buying all this Bitcoin in the bear market. No. If they're buying because of a bankruptcy, it's not good. And it causes more fear in the market. And the fact that, and then MicroStrategy is going to become even bigger, and that's going to cause even more fear. What if MicroStrategy goes down? Because again, people are going to start thinking about FTX, right? FTX was the last one after Celsius, Voyager, 3 Hours Capital, Terra Luna, BlockFi, all those other companies went under. And so I hope this doesn't happen because there's a lot of Bitcoin being held by these companies. But it is a potential, and this report is basically saying the same thing. They said this death spiral could trigger the next crypto bear market. No, it's going to be part of the bear market for sure. However, authors of the report said that since most Bitcoin treasury companies currently finance their purchases with equity rather than debt, the implosion may be contained, which is somewhat true. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, we don't know. The only thing that we do know is that there's risk, and the risk is rising the more that these companies are buying this Bitcoin at the top of the market. But meanwhile, people are saying, but Cryptoviser, Bitcoin is taking pressure off the US dollar. That's exactly what the president said. And it is what the president said. And it is true. Of course, Bitcoin will take pressure off the US dollar. But that doesn't mean that we're not going into a bear market. That doesn't mean we're not going to go into corrective phase. These things are not mutually exclusive. Like people say, but Cryptoviser, we have to have an alt season because Bitcoin went up. It's like, no, we don't. And I even wrote that in a comment. I said, like, just because Tesla goes up in value doesn't mean that Ford or GM or any of these other car companies are going to go up in value. Just because Bitcoin goes up does not mean guaranteed altcoins are going to go up. I mean, we already had alt season. We're already at the top of the Bitcoin market, and people are saying, no, Cryptoviser, we're not at all-time record highs. And it's like, no, we literally are. Like, we literally are. And they're like, no, we're not. No, we're not. All-time record high is 112,000. We're only at 107,000. It's like, you don't think that that's literally the top? You're talking about a few $1,000s. Anyway, you guys, I mean, most of my viewers understand this, but I want you to understand the sentiment of these other bots or users or investors, like what their mentality is. And by the way, there's a lot of people who do think that we're going to have an alt season, that retail is going to join the game and alts are going to go up and crazy. But think about it. If those people enter the game and alts have already not performed, as soon as people get into the green by even 1%, they're going to sell their altcoins, right? I mean, especially if we are at the end of the cycle. Meanwhile, we're also hearing Federal Reserve Chairman Powell saying that banks are now free to provide crypto and Bitcoin services. Let's listen to what he said the other day in front of Congress. And by the way, don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up. We upload every single day to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. Also, hit the subscribe button if you want to become a channel member. Click the join button down below here on YouTube to learn more. Let's listen to Chairman Powell.
Crypto space.
So our view is that banks get to decide who their customers are. That's not our decision. And so banks are free to provide banking services to the crypto industry, to crypto companies, and banks are also free to conduct crypto activities as long as they do so in a way that is, protective of safety and soundness.
Crypto space.
So our view is that.
And look at the cameraman as he's saying this. The cameraman starts shaking his head like, "Yep, we're going higher. We're going higher." See him? So yeah, I mean, crypto is fully integrated. And it's integrating even more. But we have billionaires explaining that Bitcoin's going to go to $1.14 million this cycle. And by the way, maybe it is, right? There's definitely a possibility that Bitcoin can go this high. But we are ready. The reason we're not going higher already is because somebody is on the other end selling. And people are like, but Cryptoviser, people will stop selling at some point. Or the Bitcoin they'll run out of Bitcoin, which is true, but we don't know when that point is going to be. But either way, let's say they stop selling or they run out of Bitcoin to sell. Once we go to 150,000, you don't think that there's going to be selling at that point? They're selling now at 100,000. There's definitely selling at 150, and then we get to 200,000 liquidations. I mean, people are going to completely sell everything they have to sell their Bitcoin and put it into cash and wait for a dip. And so I don't necessarily see the pathway, but let's listen to the billionaires. And I want to remind you, a lot of people watch these billionaires and they're like, oh, Cryptoviser, the billionaires are saying this. It's like, yeah, but the billionaires are not looking out for you and I. I mean, if you think about in the previous cycle, he was talking about literally buying Solana at 25 cents and then selling it at, $100 or $200. You're going for $5 million investment. Now you're a billionaire, literally, just on Solana in the last cycle. So anyway, let's listen in.
You should really look at the pattern of Bitcoin after a halving. So here's a little Bitcoin price analysis for you guys. So there's been a couple of halving cycles that have happened. And I asked him to go back and look at the price performance 1 month after a halving, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and 18 months after a halving. And what you notice is that there are these moments initially where essentially when you go through a Bitcoin halving, people are sort of reassessing what's happening and they're trying to figure it out. That's sort of what I would say happens in the first month and roughly what also happens in the first 3 months. But then within 6 months to a year and 18 months of these things, there are these crazy price appreciation cycles that happen. So that's what this page shows, which is, 18 months after the first halving, the Bitcoin price returned 45x. After the second halving, it returned almost 28x.
Right over here.
And after this third halving, it returned almost an 8x, which is really incredible returns in such a short period of time. If you go
Now I'm going to pause here because what Chamath is saying here is stuff that we cover on this channel, right? I show you this data on a chart, the Bitcoin halving tracker. He's showing this in a different type of in a different type of chart, but it's showing basically the same thing. And basically what I've been saying for a while, we are now in the 12 to 18 month time frame after the Bitcoin halving, which historically is the most volatile and most uptrending. But what we've also seen is that as cycles go on, the percentage increases on the Bitcoin price have declined substantially, which is the idea of this law of diminishing returns. As time goes on and more players get involved and there's more counterparties to the buying and counterparties to the selling, that the price levels itself out. And granted, this is a limited supply asset, but it's not a scarce asset by any means. I mean, there's 20 million coins. And granted, if MicroStrategy bought up, let's say 15 million coins, they would definitely be a huge risk to the market. But we would also know that most of the coins would be out of circulation and therefore the price would probably shoot up extremely high. But that's never going to happen. I mean, it's literally, guys, think about playing Monopoly, right? Once the banker owns like very strategic properties on the board, right? They won the game already. The other players may not realize it, but they won the game already because now they're going to be taking all of your money and you can't even buy up any of the properties because they own it, right? That is the whole game of Monopoly. And so you can't have any one country or any one company or any one individual owning 15 million Bitcoin because then it would diminish the whole value of the Bitcoin network. And so what MicroStrategy is doing is not only doing exactly what we just said. I mean, I don't think they're going to go after 15 million, but we do know that they're trying to go over 1 million Bitcoin. And so Satoshi's wallet was a risk, right? But it's a risk for the network because it's basically saying, here's Satoshi's wallet. If you can hack it, you have 1 million Bitcoin, right? But now you have a centralized entity that does have access to the Bitcoin, that is custodying the Bitcoin in third-party, thing. Like there's just a lot of risk there. And so although the Bitcoin buying is good to pump the price, when you think about the overall risk to the and this will happen, I don't think to MicroStrategy, but going back to the article that we just talked about here with the spiral for these Bitcoin treasury companies, there are going to be companies that when these prices start dropping in Bitcoin and the treasury companies go below their dollar cost average, It's going to cause a lot of fear. And I think this is going to be they're going to be part of the actual spiral. So part of what he's saying is correct here, but you can also see diminishing returns. And by the way, the Bitcoin halving was in April of 2024. We're now in basically the July or August. So that's already 12 months would be April to May to June to July to August would be 4 months after. So that's 16 months, right? And then so that will put us in October to be the kind of the final, the last, part of the cycle, 18 months. But you don't want to wait until that point, especially if guys, the billionaires are talking about this. So the billionaires, they're going to take their profits before 18 months, 100%, guys. They're going to do it. They're going to wait for these peaks. And so every time we start moving up, and this is why I think that we've had diminishing returns, because in the first cycle, nobody knew how high we were going. So people just waited and they're like, holy shit, I made this much money, right? The second cycle, people started to take profits when they started to see the cycle moving. By the third cycle, we didn't even get to the parabolic state because the selling was probably outpacing the buying by the acceleration point. We are now from the cycle low, 15,500, about 8x from the cycle low. So that means that we already outpaced the previous cycle. And we're at 16 months after the Bitcoin halving. So what do you think the billionaires are doing? They're going to wait until we get 45x? No, they see diminishing. So they know this time they need to sell before this. Now that we're already over this, by the way, we'll get to the video in a second. Now the fact that we're already over this 7.8x from the previous cycle, to a billionaire, it would mean we're probably already there, but not Chamath. He thinks we're actually going a lot higher. Let's continue listening in.
An 8x, which is really incredible returns in such a short period of time. If you go to the next page. And so if you graph that, this is what it starts to show, which is what is this price performance after each of these halving cycles. Now, why is that interesting? Well, it's interesting because on top of this halving, which theoretically, if history is a guide, we should see some price appreciation. Obviously, the other thing that's happened is we've commercialized Bitcoin. And we talked about this sort of as my big prediction for 2024, which is these ETFs are really going to allow Bitcoin to cross the chasm and have its sort of central key moment, right? And so if you apply the averages, and again, these are just averages, they're by no means predictions. Okay, so I just want to qualify that.
Yeah,
these are
this
just
is not financial advice.
It's not financial advice. These are just guesses.
Data.
We took these and we applied it to the price of Bitcoin. And if you go to the next page, you start to see what could happen if you just take the average of the last few cycles. So because the first cycle was so extreme, and you start to
so you're just doing cycle 2 and 3 here, to be clear.
Just the averages of cycle 2 and 3, and what you start to see is some really meaningful appreciation. And when I talked to Wences about this, how he explained it, which makes a lot of sense to me, is there are a lot of countries that will never look at Bitcoin credibly, even if they support it. The US may be one of those. But there's an increasing body of countries that will become dual currency. And
now I'm going to pause here for a second because, first of all, we're not even there yet. Okay, we're not there yet with dual currency. And if you look at a company like El Salvador, I mean, people are not using Bitcoin really. But yeah, you could see is that Bitcoin could reach more than 500,000 by October 2025, assuming it follows the same price patterns as cycle 2 and 3. This is the implied price targets for having cycle 4, which is where we're in right now, assuming averages of cycle 2 and 3. These are averages of the previous 2 cycles, right? So month 1, we would be at 73,000. Month 3, we would be at 77,000. Month 6, we would be at 100,000. Month 9, we would be at 240,000. Didn't reach there. Month 12, we would reach 362,000. Didn't reach that. And then he's saying at the 18 months, we could reach 1.14 million. No way. Even the average is showing 500,000. Not going to happen either. I mean, they're talking about this when we're already at $100,000 and we haven't broke through any of the other previous. And on the previous slide, we just saw diminishing returns, and now Wall Street is in the game, and Bitcoin is barely pumping past 110,000. Now, it could go up much higher in the near term, but I don't think it will because there's guys, these guys are taking their profits for sure. And there's also a lot of the early investors are taking their profits. And so getting to this 1.14 million, I mean, guys, the bull market is already underway. We went from a $30 Circle price IPO, $30 to $300. It peaked out at 10x, literally 10x on the dot, on the nose. And we're already down from $300. 40%, 45%. And so this is for a stable coin, by the way. And I'm just seeing that crypto custodian Anchorage is phasing out USDC use. According to a CoinDesk report, they're going to be stopping supporting USDC as a stablecoin. This decision followed the recent release of Anchorage's stablecoin safety metrics, which ranks stablecoins based on regulatory oversight and reserve asset management. In addition to USDC, the company is also moving away from the Agora USD and Usual USD. So are they implying that USDC is not safe? I don't know. Maybe it's a centralized risk to the market. That could definitely be, because this is the first time that we're seeing USDC actually going mainstream, which is something to think about, because we don't know how it's going to perform now that TradFi, traditional finance, is getting involved. But this is an example of the market, like we already had, we're in the midst of the bull market already. It's not just this. You can look at SharpLink. This is going to be an Ethereum-based company. I mean, we did a full round trip after they made the announcement that they were going to be an Ethereum treasury company. I mean, look at this. This is a pump and dump. This is the final stages of a bull market where people are looking for anything to pump the price, and then boom, the insiders sell, or the people who've been holding these stocks for a long time sell. And the billionaires are going to sell. But meanwhile, we're hearing about the sailor cycle. Brad Mills, who's a Bitcoin advocate, says Bitcoin cycles are dead. The days of parabolic Bitcoin booms and devastating crashes are done. Bitcoin is inevitable. And we're at the beginning of the sailor cycle. Are you positioned for the next 100x in Bitcoin? And so we keep hearing about this, right? Higher prices, the sailor effect, the MicroStrategy effect. And we're just not seeing that actually come to fruition the way that we were told, right? So this kind of shows that as there's, it says innovators, Bitcoin is money, peer-to-peer cash, all of these different things to push the price up. And now we're in the sailor cycle. I don't necessarily know what to think about that, but it says, the next decade, we will see a complete change in the structure of Bitcoin market as there is a 10-year boom in Bitcoin accumulation on a global level. Bitcoin will be seen as a corporate treasury, and there'll be thousands of public companies hovering up Bitcoin for their corporate treasuries. Bitcoin will also be seen as a strategic reserve, and countries will compete with each other to accumulate as much as possible. Individuals will also be given plenty of options to earn Bitcoin as companies like Square and other major payment companies adopt Bitcoin for merchants. Now, I just want to say, like, all of this stuff, like, this is not new. They've been saying all of this stuff since, at least since I've started learning about crypto. And so we're 10 years in, and they're still talking about, oh, they're going to do this. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. And this is going to guarantee that the price is going to 100x. I mean, over the course of time, yes, it probably is going to go up. But to think that we're not going to have corrective phases and major bear markets like we did after FTX, this is crazy thinking. And this is where people are buying at this top of the market, thinking that we're going much, much higher because the billionaires are saying we're going to hit $1 million. Even though the billionaire just said, this is just an analysis. This isn't, I don't know where the market's going to go. People say, oh, well, Chamath said it was going to go to $1 million. He was wrong. I invested all my money on based on what Chamath said. It's like, so wait, you didn't do your own research and you're blaming Chamath for your, like I get a lot of hate. Cryptoviser, you're an idiot. We're not at the top of the market. Even though based on everything that we're showing you in today's video, like we're at the top of the market. Like we can go to 150,000, but are you going to sell at 150,000? Like, is that the number that you're going to sell at? And what number is everybody else going to sell at? Anyway, I don't get it, how people don't see how this is the euphoria in the market. And meanwhile, we still have Michael Saylor. And by the way, he is a salesperson. He's not even the CEO of MicroStrategy, right? And so people think that he's there trying to make them rich. No. He's just trying to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible, any way possible. And he said in this interview, Bitcoin is going up forever. Now, I'm not going to play the whole video, but because you guys kind of get the point of it. But the point is, over the course of time, yes, I do think that Bitcoin is going to go up. But it's also going to go down, right? But why are you looking at the price if you're like, well, Cryptoviser, I'm in this for the very long term. I'm just buying and holding for 30 years. It's like, well, then why are you watching my videos? Like, why are you even worried about the price? Why are you even following the crypto space? Because there's a little bit of concern that maybe you're wrong, right? And by the way, when you have an investment thesis, you have to constantly change it, right? People say, "Oh, Cryptoviser, you're a flip-flopper," and this and that. It's like, yeah, I am. Like that is how you invest. You have to be able to say, "Well, this is a great time to invest, and now it's not a great time to invest. This is a great time to pull my money out." Right? This goes for any stock, any crypto, any asset. People buy homes and sell homes. Some people just want to buy a home. They never want to sell it. They just want to live in it their whole life. But meanwhile, they'll still look at the price of the house and say, "Oh, my house went up." It's like, but you plan on never selling it. Yeah, I never plan on selling it. It's like, so then why do you care about the price? Anyway, we on this channel, we're here to make money in the markets. And so understanding this market psychology about how people are so bullish, this is the indicator to be bearish, right? This user, who's a founder of Quant Macro at Capriole Fund, he said people are wondering why Bitcoin has been stuck at $100,000 so long despite institutional FOMO, despite what X News might suggest. It's because Bitcoin OGs, long-term holders, have been dumping on Wall Street since the ETF launch in January 2024, unloading their positions. Yeah, of course. He's 100% correct. Guys, I want you to think about this, right? Because again, you have a home that you never plan on selling, right? You just never plan on selling it. One day, a developer knocks on your door. Your home is worth $500,000. You're excited about that. The developer knocks on your door, says, "You need to get out of this house in 30 days. We'll give you $1 million cash." You're not going to leave? Of course you're going to leave. You're going to say, "They're going to give me double what my house is worth. Buy it," right? And if you say no, they'll give you $1.5 million cash. There will be a price that you will sell. I mean, most people. There's definitely people. I mean, you could see like videos of like people in different areas of the world that they like refuse to sell their home, and they like built highways like completely around the home. The home's like in the middle of a highway. It's very interesting. But the bottom line is, the higher the price goes, the more incentivized you are to take the deal. And you have Wall Street coming in with literally, like, imagine you had hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of Bitcoin that you got from mining Bitcoin or just early investor or whatever the situation. And now you have to offload that, right? You have to realize that gain. But if you put it in the market, typically the market's just going to fall unless you have exit liquidity, which is what Wall Street is and has been. Wall Street is saying we're going to put billions and billions and billions and billions into this market. And so you can either hold your Bitcoin or take this money. And these people who have had Bitcoin for years, they're saying, let's take the money, right? And then you set up other lines of business to protect your future finances. Anyway, this person continues saying, in April, on this podcast, he predicted that the Bitcoin treasury companies would create a huge flywheel buying frenzy and push the ETF narrative into the back seat. We've clearly entered into the heat of that today, as many copycats have entered the market. This dynamic is now starting to appear in the on-chain data, and we can see that the 6-month Bitcoin holders have skyrocketed over the last 2-month period. The amount of Bitcoin acquired in the last 2 months by this cohort has completely consumed all the Bitcoin unloaded by, I don't know what, long-term holders over the last 1.5 years. Incredible. We also see a nice dynamic whenever aggressive spikes in 6 million plus holders occur. Price usually squeezes following these periods. Short-term bullish. Again, short-term bullish, because medium-term bear market. Anyway, so will the treasury companies be able to keep up the fast rate of their accumulation? He said he thinks this flywheel still has a long way to go. In the near term, we still need to overwhelm broader weakness across on-chain data, which on aggregate could be better off. If the 6 million plus holders, like treasury companies, can continue their relentless buying, that should be achievable. But they may not be able to, right? That's something that we have to think about. Because the thing is, every time we hear about a new company buying more Bitcoin or doing a treasury strategy, like every week or every month we're going to buy, now they're setting a new floor for the amount of Bitcoin buying that has to occur to maintain this valuation. Otherwise, the demand drops off and the supply is either the same or ever increasing based on where the price is. But a lot of people don't fully understand these dynamics and they just invest based on headlines like this. Time for 10% or 40% of your portfolio in crypto, according to one financial advisor. So advising 40% in crypto. Now, I'm not opposed to putting 40% of net worth in crypto, but maybe not saying this at the top of the market, right? Because those people who do that, they may only have $100,000. And so they put their 40% in at 100,000. We drop down to 50 in a bear market, which could last for years. Now they have half of their net worth that they had before. And so this I think that people are still scarred from the FTX debacle, right? There's still people who don't want to get involved in crypto. There's still people companies that don't want to get involved in crypto. That's why we're seeing these treasury companies starting to pop up, because they can play it on the stock market without necessarily having to deal with the risk of the actual crypto itself. And so there's a lot of dynamics at play here, guys. There's a lot of dynamics. I even pulled up Plan B. This was the guy who did the failed stock to flow model. He's still posting charts like this. It says Bitcoin is at an interesting point. The relative strength index is at 70. Traditional investors use a 30 to 70 relative strength index range. So they start to get worried that Bitcoin is overbought now. Bitcoin investors, on the other hand, know that normal Bitcoin RSI range is 40 to 90. So the RSI 70 is only slightly above the average. So anything to basically say, oh, well, don't look at the chart. Look at the chart, but don't look at the chart. No, guys. What I see here is every cycle we've had lower RSI, relative strength index, compared to where the price is, right? The previous cycle, or where we are now, I should say. So this already looks like we're kind of topped out. And so if this is the top out for relative strength, what do you think is happening next? But they look at this chart and they're like, oh no, this is really bullish because technically we should be up here, even though we've already come down and this looks like we're trending on lower. Nope, we should be up here. So, Bitcoin is still bullish. And I'm like, these are the type of posts that make me say, yep, end of the cycle, guys, end of the cycle. This is the stock to flow model, right? It says, just to confirm, Bitcoin is still in a bull market. I see some people turning bearish and shorting, but the data tells a different story, a bullish story in his opinion. We just need some patience. Yeah, we have all these red dots, and what happens after the red dots? Down. Red dots, down. Red dots, oh, we're going to go up this time. They were still in a bull market. This is so much BS. I cannot even, I can't. This one says, Bitcoin has tracked power law very well. Question is, will we see a 2013, 2017, or 2021-like bull run with an RSI over 80? And if so, how high will Bitcoin go from there? 100x like in 2013, 10x like 2017, 4x like 2021? Or 2x like most people think. Guys, we're not at 2x. This is misleading, right? The previous cycles, we go from 100x or whatever it is from the cycle low. The cycle low this cycle is $15,500. We're at $115,000 basically. And so what does that tell me? Well, we've done a 9x or an 8x. And so we're already higher than we were in the previous cycle. But people are like, no, apparently the bull market or Bitcoin's history is ignored before $100,000 because $100,000 is the new, well, that's the cycle low. No, this is the cycle top And they want you to think that it's the low. The cycle is over, guys. It may not show it in the markets yet, and we could go much higher, but it's starting to slow down. When you see all this money just pumping in at the top of the market, when you see Bitcoin experts and bulls and people who are very smart buying the top of the market with money they cannot afford to lose, aka Bitcoin treasury companies, for me, it's an indicator. And I'm not saying we're going into a forever bear market, but we are definitely going to correct. And the more people are bullish about it, the more I think that the correction is coming. And this may be one of it, right? Look at the euphoria. All systems are go for a Solana staking ETF to launch any moment, according to analysts. Yeah, so everybody's been buying the rumor. The news is Solana staking ETF is now is approved. So we can go higher based on the news. But then what, right? Now you're earning rewards in your ETF. Okay. That's the new baseline, right? These are not announcements that are going to push the market and blow it out of the water. I mean, even Ripple. Ripple says they're eyeing multiple acquisitions in Ethereum-like upgrades to the XRP Ledger blockchain. You know, I did some research to understand, like, what has Ripple announced over the last few years of how they're actually integrating XRP usage into their technologies or capabilities. Not really much, right? And so if Ripple gets or XRP, I should say, gets an ETF, the Ripple army is loving it. XRP army loves that. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to get an ETF. It's like, yeah, but who are they buying from? They're going to literally buy the XRP directly from Ripple because Ripple sells to the open market. And so this is going to have even less of an impact on the price than people think. And again, you know, XRP has already done a very, very high move and it doesn't really have a lot of strength since the major move to the upside. So can we go higher than this? I don't know. I mean, it looks like a good floor, but it also looks like the market is a little bit downtrending. It's kind of hard to see. It looks pretty flat, to be honest, over this year. So maybe we'll go one more leg up. But I think that the selling situation, people, I don't even understand why the XRP army doesn't talk about it with Ripple selling their escrow. Because trust me, guys, if Solana ETF gets approved, Ethereum staking ETF gets approved, XRP, everyone's going to say this is the most bullish thing that ever happened. But it's not. It's definitely not, especially if Ripple is selling the XRP to the ETFs. And so, yeah, there's a lot of risk in the market. There's a lot of things happening. People are saying the bull market has not even begun, right? Plan B is saying, well, if Bitcoin just 2x's from here, then, you know, it's like 2x's. We've already done an 8x. Like the likelihood we're going to go from 100,000 to 200. Guys, they keep moving the goalposts. They keep moving the goalpost. We'll go to 120,000 and people say, you see, we made it to 120. This guarantees that we're going to hit 500,000. It's like, based on what? Companies are buying Bitcoin already. They've already bought the Bitcoin. The price hasn't moved past 110,000. What's bigger than corporations buying Bitcoin? Governments? They've already bought Bitcoin. So, I don't know. To me, it looks like the cycle's over. I want to know what you guys think down below. Let me know in the comments. Also, give the video a free thumbs up. Check out our other videos on the channel. Hit the subscribe button. That way you never miss a new video. And I'll see you when I see you. Crypto on.